Hello everyone, this is Floki at the Crypto Foundry, and I'm here to present to you lesson 2 of our series of lessons on Elliott wave. We'll be covering the basic corrective waves today. So let's get right to it without further ado. Let's start out with the zigzags. So normally with Elliott wave, we will see 5 waves up or down. Actually, why am I doing this? Let's do something else here. Much easier like this. This is an impulse wave, normally followed by a correction. So you either have a zigzag or a flat. We'll go into these in more detail later. Or a triangle. And you also have combinations of these waves, which we'll get into in other courses. I want to keep it very simple. Today we're going to be covering mostly the zigzags and the flats. We'll go over triangles very summarily. So obviously, after these corrections are done, we have more impulse waves going up or diagonals or whatever. And so yeah, so either at the end of the zigzag, at the end of the flat, or at the end of the triangle. With these types of corrections, you cover all of the possible scenarios for corrections, and if you find that the correction goes below the start of this wave, what you have there is an invalidation. So that means you have to pretty much zoom out and recount from further out. So let's start with the zigzag. And what are the rules for the zigzags? Okay, let's start with wave A. The rule for wave A is in a zigzag, it has to be either an impulse or a diagonal. We covered those in the last lesson. So this is how it's subdivided. Here we go. That's a wave A. As for wave B, it can only be a corrective pattern. It can either be a zigzag, a flat, or a triangle, or a combination of those. Wave B has to be shorter than wave A in a zigzag, so wave B in a zigzag can't come up and finish up here. It is possible in a flat, but since this is a zigzag, it has to be between 20 and 90% of wave A. So this is the minimum for a zigzag right here. As for the composition, you'll normally see a zigzag. I won't go into proportions here, but the majority of the time you can expect to see a zigzag in wave B. And if you don't see the zigzag, you can basically zoom in. You're going to see the waves a bit better. So yeah, wave B has to be shorter than A. Wave B has to be at least 20% of the price of A. So on the fib level, which we're going to be covering in the next lesson, that's the 236 level, which I drew right here. If we expand it a bit, we see the 236 right here. I think, let me just delete this one. There we go. So yeah, the B wave has to be at least this high for it to be considered a zigzag. As for wave C, the rules are has to be like wave A, an impulse or a diagonal. So you got 5 waves again, like so. Or a diagonal. You guys know what the diagonal looks like. They're expanding. Submit it there. Right here, right here. So here we have the expanding diagonal. Actually, I have to draw it from 1. And 5 often falls short in the expanding. Then you have the inverse, which is contracting. So 3 types of wave. Basically, you have the normal impulse, expanding diagonal, or contracting diagonal. So here's where it gets a bit more complicated. If wave A is a leading diagonal, then C must not be an ending diagonal. So if you have a diagonal here, you can't have one again here, and vice versa. Wave C is normally 90 longer than 90% of B by price. So the minimum, let's just get rid of this here. The minimum it has to come down is like just short of A. I always use fibs for this. It's such an awesome tool. I can't wait to do that course for you guys. So yeah, if I had the 90% fib level here, that's where it would be approximately. Wave C has to be less than 5 times of wave B as well. An important rule. So to calculate that, we're going to use the fib extension tool. Actually, retracement tool. Is that about the same thing? I might have to add it though. So it's a rule to be respected, but however, it's a very high ratio, so you rarely see it. So we get down to 4236 down here. So it'd be right here. Past this, it would probably be invalid on that rule. We're getting a little bit more into detail here. We're not allowed to have a truncated fifth on both wave A and wave C. So if we take wave A here and put wave 3 of it down here, this would be a truncated fifth. So you're not allowed to have that on wave A and wave B. It's sort of the same thing as the diagonal rule. So that's pretty easy to remember. And the last rule, which is not something that we see very often, is wave C cannot be more than 10 times either wave A or wave B in price or time. In crypto, the time is not very important because of the volatility. Everything moves so fast, so it's not applicable most of the time in crypto. So those were the rules. I can write them down in the comment section after the video. We also have a ton of guidelines that the zigzag normally follows. I'm not going to get into details on those, but I could show you a few of them. So we have wave B should end nowhere near the beginning of wave A. So I guess this rule can mean it's subject to interpretation, but I wouldn't put wave B at higher than 786, or else it becomes more of a flat than a zigzag. So if you see it going above this, maybe start considering the rules and guidelines for a flat at that time. I know we said the rule is wave B should retrace at least 20% of A, but as a guideline, you want to see it go at least to the 3.3, the 3.82 fib lines. It just makes for a nicer zigzag. So yeah, most of these other guidelines are not as important. They're more cosmetic when you're looking at the chart than rules. So I'm going to skip over them and I'm going to hop right into the flat correction. Let's get rid of this. Actually, let's draw the flat. This is a flat after 5 waves. Actually, just give me a second here. I don't have these drawn out in advance, so yeah, this is a bearish corrective flat. So the trend is down. We're going downwards, and this correction is a correction upwards, which means the following 5 waves should be down as well. So this visually, this is a regular flat. Let's go through the rules. Okay, so let's start with the rules for wave A. Wave A can be any corrective pattern except the triangle. Wave B can be any corrective pattern except the triangle, because you see there are sharp moves. So they're probably going to be zigzags or flats inside this flat, inside the subwaves of the flat. The difference between the big difference between a flat and a zigzag is the length of B. B has to be at least 70% of wave A. So it's going to be beyond the retracement, beyond the golden pocket. So it's going to be like, it has to be at least this long, at least the golden pocket, and then back up or back down, depending on the trend direction. Wave B has to be less than twice the price movement of A. So has to be a minimum of 70%, but a maximum of less than 2. See, this is important because when you first look at flats, I know I made the mistake when I was starting out. I would think that the maximum would be the 1, 2, 3, 6. I went back and read, practiced a little bit, and you're going to see a lot of 1, 6, 1, 8s on flats. You're going to see a lot less getting close to 2, but this happens very often. So 1, 6, 1, 8, yeah, happens a lot more often than 2. There is no minimum time constraint for wave B to happen, but it has to be less than 10 times the time it took for wave A. Wave A, you're normally going to see something sharp. So you have, let's do the exercise right here. So you have a date range of this. So 52 days in time. So your wave B is going to have to be less than 500 days, for example, if we're counting the time. These rules are not, the time rules are not something that you're going to be confronted with very often in crypto. It's something more having to do with the traditional market, but the rules are there for a reason. So if you want to be overzealous about it, you can count the time if you can't estimate it with your eyes. Wave C must be an impulse or an ending diagonal. So I'm just gonna backtrack a bit here. Just a recap of what we learned. So here we have a zigzag. And that's a 5, 3, 5 wave structure. And from the rules we've seen so far, the flat is a 3, 3, 5 structure. So that's a big difference as well as the length of B. We're going to go and see some examples to try to identify flats versus zigzags in a little while. I just want to go over the end of the rules. I think this little backtrack was important. For those of you guys who already know Elliott wave well, it's easy to spot 535 versus a 335. So yeah, wave C must be impulse or ending diagonal, which means you have 5 waves on C. Let's erase the fib retracement. Oops. And add the waves. Get rid of this, we don't need it anymore. So yeah. So if we draw the subwaves here, we have this, we have this, and we have 5 waves up. Also, something very different from the zigzag is wave C shares a lot more space with wave A because of the length of wave B. This is more of a guideline for me than a rule. Next rule is wave C must be less than twice the longest of waves A and B. So if wave A is longer, wave C has to be less than wave A. If wave B is longer, then wave C has to be less than wave B. And this includes all the internal points, which means if you have a truncated fifth, your wave 3 cannot, the total of all the 5 waves, including this wave 3, which is longer, has to be shorter than the longest wave of A or B. So in this case, we're good. Wave C must also be less than 3 times the price distance of A. See, that's a major difference with the zigzag, because the wave C on a zigzag could be up to 5 times the length of A. So again, wave C must be less than 3 times the price distance of wave A. So this would be a fib extension. So at this point, it's actually pretty big. At this point, it's invalid, but it's a pretty huge flat. I can't say I've seen very many of these. I mean, the moment that this is 90% of A, moment that B is 90% of A, this would be a zigzag for me. The only thing that makes it a flat is that B is higher or equal, and you would see a zigzag here. So there's lots of considerations to take into account. The cleaner zigzags are more in this shape. Wave C must not be more than 10 times either waves A or B in price and time. So this is the same as a zigzag rule for the price time, but like I said, it's not really applicable to crypto at the moment because of the high volatility. So yeah, and you got more guidelines for the zigzag and the flat that I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will post both the rules and the guidelines in the bottom text of the video. I also said I was going to touch on triangles, but I don't want this video getting out of hand time-wise, so I'm just going to touch on it really quickly. Actually, I'm not going to draw it out. Let's go see the charts. Let's clean this up. And while we're at it, you can give me a follow on Twitter and join the Crypto Foundry. Make sure to message myself or Crypto Heat to get your free trial. The link is here. I'll also put it in the bottom of the video. Now let's get into it. What do we have here? All right, so I think if we zoom out here, we can clearly see 5 waves. Right here, or doesn't matter, whatever a wave count it is. What do we think this is? I'm hesitating. Let's zoom in and see the waves a bit clearer. Where are we here? Right there. 2 hours. Okay, so we do seem to have an impulse here. Can we do this? Normally C on a zigzag it goes much further. So what can we possibly have here? I think we found our first triangle. No? How about that? Actually, this is how you draw it, right there. So it's contracting. And you have a clear wave 1 coming right out of it, which is actually very beautiful. Zoom down a bit. Right there. So you got wave 3, possibly right here, and you got a flat up here, right there, a beautiful flat, and a divergent 5th wave top with an end close to a truncated 5th. So let's zoom in. We got a deep, no, actually it's not too deep. We'd have to zoom in to see the waves, but you clearly got a corrective pattern here. either a zigzag or a flat. And coming out of that, you got another impulse up. Here is a clear zigzag up to finish the fifth wave. And here's where we see our nice flat right here. How about that? Let's go 1, 2, 3. Triangle. Triangle right there. And you got your truncated fifths, which stems out of you got a long third wave triangle correction and a failed impulse up. As you can see clearly, volume is not there in the fifth wave. It's barely breaking above the overbought zone. So weakness there, and then we begin the longer term corrective pattern, which looks like it's too soon to tell, but we do have an impulse down, so we can assume that it should be a zigzag. Oh, sorry. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's your wave A for your zigzag. Zigzag up for B. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I assume somewhere here we've had our 5 waves. So we probably have to measure the fibs, which we're going to cover in the next lesson. So yeah, I think we found a lot of nice corrective patterns that we were able to identify here on the Tesla chart. So it's all about zooming in, zooming out, finding the correct calls, looking at your divergences, defining if you could see 5 waves of impulse on the first wave of the correction to either identify a zigzag or a flat. So yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Again, follow me on Twitter if you have 2 minutes, and join us at the Crypto Foundry, where we give out some calls, advice, not financial advice, of course. But yeah, come join us. Let's have fun together and make some money. Have a great day.